Today is Tuesday, November 12th, 2013. This is Nancy Datras operating the video equipment, and Bob Kagris, who is doing the interviewing, and we are interviewing Julie Lobur.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming anyway, Julie.
It's my pleasure, Bob.
We have a few sort of pro forma questions that we'll ask. You know, you're not are you listening to this, whether it's going on the tape or not?
Yeah, I already checked. It's going.
Oh, okay. Well, now that I said that.
Yeah, now we have to edit that out.
I know. I'm sorry. But I just saw Lana and I thought she's not.
No, I checked.
Oh, I didn't know you did that, darling.
Should I look at the camera or look at Bob?
No,
Yeah,
you can
look at
me.
Bob.
Okay,
Yeah.
look at Bob. That's more.
Your profile.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Well, it won't be a direct profile, but
Wow.
don't look at me.
Okay.
Is it all right? You hearing good? Mm-hmm. Okay, what are we going to do? Start over? Or?
No, they'll just edit that part out.
Okay. All right, well, some of the pro forma questions that we'll probably start with. We ask you to give your own name so that they know who we're talking to.
Okay, I'm Julie Lobur.
Okay. Julie, would you be offended if we asked you your birth date and where you were brought up?
Oh well, I was born in 1955. Yeah. Oh, I'm not that old. Born in 1955, and I'm from New Kensington, which is a very small town, an old mill town north of Pittsburgh. And when I was there, when the town was the aluminum city. Aluminum city. They made more aluminum there than I think any place in the world.
Okay, very good. Do you have siblings?
I did have a sibling.
You did?
Yes,
Okay.
she passed away from cancer.
Mm-hmm. And your parents?
My parents are both deceased,
Deceased
as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, and how long have you been living here in Harrisburg?
Been living here in Harrisburg, except for a little hiatus that I took around the country for a few years. But Mom and I moved here in 1970. So it makes it 43 years.
43 years.
Minus about 3 maybe. Mm-hmm. Closer to 5. So
Okay.
43 minus 5 would be 38.
Okay, tell us a little about your education. Where did you go to school? And
Well, when Mom and I moved here, I was 15 years old, if you can save me from doing the math. And I enrolled in the Harrisburg City Schools, William Penn High School at the time. Now, where I came from was a very ethnically diverse area. But in 1970 was 2 years after the race riots here in Harrisburg. And there was an awful lot of racial tension going on, and quite honestly, I was afraid. I was afraid in that school, and I wasn't learning anything. It was just an awful place. So, make a long story short, Mom enrolled me over in the Harrisburg Academy for 2 years.
oh, yes.
And that was 2 years I'd just as soon forget about, but I did graduate from there. Then while I was at the academy is when I came out. So I don't know if you want me to launch
Sure,
from
that's
there.
fine, whatever you want to
Yeah, and it was in 1973, and I just remember it's been 40 years now I came out.
Wow.
And I met my girlfriend in the Commerce Diner because I was underage. Obviously, I was 18 years old, and we had the gay diner there at 2nd and State Street, and I met her, and she wasn't exactly the pick of the litter, but we got together for a while, and after keeping all of my closeted feelings bottled up, it was like a ton of bricks coming off my shoulders at the time.
Yes.
So, I was expected to go to college at that point, and I went to Carnegie Mellon for about 6 months. I had issues. I wanted my girlfriend. Everything was here. Carnegie Mellon is in Pittsburgh.
Right.
And so I dropped out of Carnegie Mellon and came back here and just kind of bummed around. 2 girlfriends later, I ended up going to Hack, finishing up my bachelor's degree at Penn State and then went on for a master's degree in computer science in 2003. So that's been an awful long span of education.
Well, that's all right, you still have it.
Yeah.
And you're still utilizing it.
Yeah, I'm lucky to be able to do that.
Good. Okay, what are you currently doing now as your occupation?
Currently, I am, my title is I'm a project manager at the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I am a combination of a project manager. I do more computer architecture type work, software engineering, requirements documentation, some of the process engineering. A lot of the stuff there really isn't a classification for at the Commonwealth, but that's what I do, and I am lucky to be working using my degree. I work very heavily in information technology, and I'm also an adjunct instructor of computer science at Penn State Harrisburg, and I've been doing that for about 13 years.
You're a busy lady.
Ah, yeah.
Yep.
Keeps me off the streets.
It does keep you out the street. Now, I know that your partner was in the military. Did you ever serve in the military?
Well, actually, that's where we met. I had, when I got out of school and came back to Harrisburg, and of course the girlfriend that I met at the Commerce Diner, that was Splitsville. And then I met a very controlling individual, and it was an absolutely disastrous relationship for about 12 years. In my numerous efforts at escaping her, one of them was to enlist in the military. And so I did in 1983. I was pretty old. I was 28 at the time. I know, my gosh, they still expected me to do push-ups. And that's whenever Marla was in my platoon. And I was in the 3rd squad, she was in the 4th squad, so that meant she was always behind me in formation, and my being 5'9" and her being 5'2", she really enjoyed being behind me, so the drill sergeants could never see her. But we were good friends. The military really does expose one's character, and the goodness that I saw in her heart really just impressed the heck out of me. We did not become lovers or anything else. We were just buddies at the time. And I ended up, my ex found out where I was, and she dobbed me in as being gay at the time. Of course, 1983, we were not allowed to be in the military. And actually, she didn't even have the guts to do it herself. She put a straight friend up to contacting the liaison officer and saying, "Oh, do you know you have a lesbian in the Army?" And at which point, I was invited to leave before I finished basic training. But before I left, Marla came up to me. I was just in my civvies. I was ready to go out the door, and Marla came up to me and said, just shoved her address in my hand and said, "Lobur, write to me." And so I did, and we wrote letters for a couple years. And
sweet.
Yeah, and then she came to visit once, and as they say, the rest is history.
So that's how many years ago?
That was almost 28 years ago.
Oh, and you're still together.
Yes.
That's amazing. That's wonderful.
Yeah. If you knew what I was like to live with, it's even more amazing.
I'm sure it's not that bad.
Yeah, working all the time.
Right. Yeah, you're working. Do you have any memberships in any community organizations or anything that you guys are active?
Not at this time.
Okay, well, now the next question was, when did you realize you're LGBT? But you already told us that.
Yeah, I guess everybody realizes it at a very young age.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was, I was actually, I think about 16 or 17 whenever I finally came to grips with it. Mm-hmm. And then lived with that little secret until I found the woman in the Commerce Diner with nothing to do.
What was life for you as an LGBT? What kind of things did you do in the community?
At that time, in 1973, there wasn't a whole lot we did in the community. We had, at the time, the nexus of the gay community was at 2nd and State Street. All of State Street, I'm sure you've probably heard this from a lot of people, was a cruising street where the gentlemen met other gentlemen. And actually, it was quite a carnival atmosphere there. It was rather fun to watch. We had the Commerce Diner, which was at probably about, it's 3-4 doors in from State Street toward the south. The 400 Club was the gay club there at the time, and it was run by, I think their names were Les and Tiny, if I'm not mistaken. And they were straight people, and they ran that place with an iron fist. If you crossed them, you got barred for some time, some period of time. Again, I was underage. I couldn't go in there, but I could hang out at the diner as much as I could. And the diner, to me, we were notorious here in Harrisburg, probably the only place that had a gay diner. Not that the diner is run by gay people, but it was so dominated by the gay clientele that the straight people knew where they were, which was rare in those days.
Very good, very good. So I think you alluded to it before. You have traveled some
Yes.
in your lifetime.
Just a little bit. When I with my ex, my controlling ex, I really went from job to job at the time. I had no college education at that time. And things, about 1980, things got really bad here in Harrisburg. We must have had a recession. I know a lot of the lower level jobs went to the Vietnamese boat people who had come over and just swarmed the area, and everybody was really in a hurry to help them out. So my inimitable skills as a bus person and a broom pusher were highly competitive at that time. So we ended up pushing off for West Virginia for a little while. Sandy's dad had supposedly found her a job, which, working in a factory, and she didn't keep that job like she never kept any job. We stayed there for a little while. Eventually that dried up, and we went back to the Pittsburgh area. And we lived there for a couple years. I think we were in West Virginia, not even 6 months. And then we went back to the Pittsburgh area, and that's where I actually got my computer training. I went to a trade school there. And so we were there a couple years, and I knew I could go nowhere without any kind of training. So that's when I got that computer training. I got a couple jobs doing that, and then when I joined the military to get rid of her, and it didn't work, she decided to go to Florida, so I followed her down there. And yeah, I know. We had, I think, something like 16 addresses within 5 years.
Oh, my goodness.
It was awful. And of course, we were always about 3 inches ahead of the bill collector.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, has being out affected your work life now that you're working and doing a steady job?
Well, it's funny because I wasn't very out at work. I didn't make any effort to hide my sexual orientation, but I don't have a picture of Marla on my desk. And when people ask, about my personal life, I just kind of changed the subject for a while, and I did that up until this year. And this year was the year that I was one of the litigants in the ACLU marriage lawsuit. We were suing the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to recognize the marriage between Marla and myself. We were married in Iowa in 2009, as soon as we could. And our pictures were all over the paper. We had microphones in our faces. So at that point, I was out with a bang. And
Yes, I would say that, yeah.
And what has been, this is the old saying, that a brave person dies only once, but a coward dies 1,000 times.
Right.
All those years that I was afraid to come out. Really, it was not that I was afraid to come out. I just really didn't know how to come out at that point. I kind of came out, and people have been, really supportive at my job, and even my very religious boss, and I was worried about him, But he's a real Christian, and I found that out after this. Wonderful man. I mean, he's a wonderful man anyway, but...
Very good. Do you want to tell us a little more about the lawsuit? Because I'm real interested.
Oh, you're real interested. Well,
Yes.
I can tell you what as much as I can. The American Civil Liberties Union, the Pennsylvania chapter of that group, has decided to fight on behalf of the gays in Pennsylvania to have the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania either recognize our out-of-state marriages or allow us to marry here in Pennsylvania. And I'm a little surprised the ACLU has, I mean, they've always been very active as far as GLBT issues here in Pennsylvania, but this just seemed to drop out of the blue. And I suspect what happened, I don't know for a fact, but I suspect what happened was that there is a widow among our litigants, plaintiffs. And her name is Maureen Maureen Hennessy. And she had lost her, they were married in Massachusetts, and she had lost her wife to cancer. Her son, being a photographer, caught all of this on film, her interaction with him. The film is on the ACLU website. And just her final days, Beth's final days, and what they had been through and everything. Well, I think that video that they sent that, I think they sent that to the ACLU, and the ACLU said it's time to do something. And there was they sent out they reached out into the community to see if there was any interest in participating in this lawsuit. And Marla and I said, hey, we need to do this. And so we, joined the fight. We're there at the time we filed the lawsuit. I think there were 10 couples. I think 6 of us were already married outside the state. 4 were not married yet and wanted to get married in Pennsylvania. 1 was the widow, and then there were 2 children of an unmarried couple who have said, I'm being harmed because my mothers cannot be married. So, we all got together and they filed a federal lawsuit with the district court, wanting to get these marriages recognized and the freedom to marry in Pennsylvania. Governor Corbett and Susan Cain were named as litigants. I don't think that's going to be the case going forward. However, there is still grounds because we have the Secretary of the Department of Health and Revenue, of course, is interested too. Should be a party of this case because we are married because we want protection from inheritance and all those tax things. And so that's this week. The judge is supposed to decide whether our case is going to go forward. The federal judge, Judge Jones, whether our case is going to go forward or if they are going to dismiss it based on Baker versus Nelson. And there's a lot of reasons that they should not dismiss it, but I'm not an attorney, so I can't really speak to that. It's since we filed the lawsuit on July 9th, and since then there have been a number of the couples have gotten married out of state because the federal government now will recognize our marriages no matter based on where celebrated, which they always have. So people have been going out of state to get married. I don't know if how many unmarried people we're going to end up with by the end of this. They're going to have some revisions to the lawsuit this week. So.
Right now you're playing a waiting game.
We are playing a waiting game. We are waiting again, waiting and waiting.
Well, I think it's terribly brave of you.
Oh, thank you, Bob.
For those folks who will be seeing this long into the future, probably won't believe this.
That's true. they will think it's absurd.
Yeah.
You know, why would anybody be denied the freedom to marry?
Right. Whether we all will see it or not, I doubt, but
Yeah, well, we both were alive during the Loving case. That was
Yes.
the interracial marriage that was fought in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and it was the Lovings, a African American woman and her husband, and they were they fought that at the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, no,
yeah.
you can't do that. And now, if somebody even suggests that an interracial couple
Yes.
could get married, it would be thought to be the most ridiculous thing. So, another 40 years.
Yeah. Well, we certainly hope it's not 40 more years. We certainly do. Have you been active in any other LGBT civil rights efforts? I mean, this is a big one, but
Yeah.
have you done some other things?
Not to any great extent, especially lately. I've done a little bit of this and a little bit of that with the churches, and I've gone to marches. And we went to the big march on Washington in 2009, and have written some articles for newsletters. So not a real big activist.
Well, you sound very busy as it is.
Yeah, unfortunately,
We've made some giant steps.
we have.
Maybe they're not giant steps. We've made some steps. More than baby, but not giant. Are you aware of what challenges we still have to fight in addition to the gay marriage issue?
Well, yeah, I think in general we have to fight for acceptance among the heterosexuals, and this it's been stunning. The last year has been overwhelming in the way people have just turned around and embraced us. And it has been a lot of people just coming out and saying that they're gay, and I think gay marriage has had a lot to do with that. You get married, you can't very well hide it. When Marla and I got married, we were on the front page of the Carroll County paper in Carroll, Iowa, and something about lesbians getting married, or I was thinking, okay. So, but it has been a sea change in people's attitudes. It's going to, I think we've seen a lot of changes in the straight community. I think a lot of the haters are going, they're the ones in the closets now, and I think they're still out there. I don't think they're ever going to go away. We have to always keep our guard up to some extent, I think. And I think within our own community now, the way things are, we now have our seat at the table. And I think a lot of the behaviors and attitudes within our own community are going to have to shape up for that. I was thinking, years and years ago, you just, you loved them and left them. And it was serial monogamy, and a relationship that lasted 2 years was, long. And the joke, well, the lesbians, tend to hook up too quickly anyway, exchange the rings too quickly anyway. And I think that once the ring starts being a little bit more permanent, I would hope that we'll start being more careful about who we choose, and maybe court a little bit. That's fun. And really make some commitments to each other, commitments to the community. And that's the kind of change that I'm really looking for, even among ourselves.
Okay, let me switch gears just a little bit. What has been to you the most important events in your life, just as a person, not necessarily a gay person?
Yeah. Oh. Wow. I would have to say certainly getting my degrees, my bachelor's degree, my master's degree, meeting Marla, and hooking up with her as a permanent partner, getting married, It certainly was epoch-making there. Let's see. Well, when my textbook was published the first time, that was at that point you didn't know I wrote a book.
No, tell us about that.
Yeah, it's I co-authored it with Dr. Linda Knoll, and it's called The Essentials of Computer Organization and Architecture, ECOA, Computer Organization and Architecture. And it's in its 4th edition now. We're finishing that up right now. And that's why I had to put you off till this month, because we were working on tear sheets to get that done. And it's actually selling very, very well for our, in our field. And my hat's off to the publisher, because the first edition of that book came out in 2003. 2003 was a long time ago.
Yes, it was.
And that was before gay marriage was even legal in Massachusetts. And our publisher is in Massachusetts, Jones and Bartlett. Now it's JB Learning. And in the preface, I wanted to thank my partner, Marla. And I was concerned. I got a hold of the acquisitions editor. I said, now look, I know you're going to want to sell this book at Oral Roberts University and Liberty University and Messiah. And I said, but Marla has put up with an awful lot to get this. It took us 4 years to write this book, and that was just the book, not counting all the software that I wrote to go with it.
Right.
And he emailed back, and he said, I wrote by way of our managing our production editor, and I asked her to ask him, and he forwarded back, you tell her she can dedicate that book to anybody she wants to. Whoa. So, my hat's off to Jones and Bartlett for that, and they have, as far as I know, it hasn't hurt sales at all. I mean, it's done very well, so.
Very good.
Yeah.
Gee whiz, I have to get a copy and have you sign it.
I will be glad to give you. I should donate one to the center here. I'm always looking for people to donate my copies to.
Yeah. While we're on the subject of the books, do you have favorite books, music, that kind of thing they have particular significance to you in some way? To you and your partner?
Let me think about that a little bit. Now, for one thing, it's funny. I don't know if this is has anything to do with being gay, but fiction bores the crap out of me. I really, even the classics, I can't stand fiction. And romance especially. So I read a lot of nonfiction, historical nonfiction. And of course, anything to do with gay people. Some of my absolutely favorite books that I would recommend to anybody. The first one is As Nature Made Him. And if you notice, I don't know if you're familiar with the book. I can't remember his name. Reimer? Yeah, and in this, he was two twin boys were born to a couple, and I think they were in Oregon, someplace out west, and this was in the 1970s, two identical twin boys. They had taken them in for a circumcision, and one circumcision went very badly. And so the one twin, they decided it was best to remove his external genitalia and raise him as a girl. And it is the most eye-opening book about nurture versus nature. And when people, I think the instruction, the piece of that for us as gay people, I mean, nobody can make you gay, nobody can make you male, nobody can make you female. The story does have a happy ending where Mr. Reimer does, he gets rid of the girl trip. He finally, as you can imagine, he went through a lot of mental anguish, and he finally did get his member restored, and he married a woman, and as far as I know, they're living happily ever after.
Great.
So that book is a real eye-opener. I recommend it to everybody in the world, but I think it especially speaks to GLBT.
May I ask again what the name of it was?
As Nature Made Him.
As Nature Made Him.
As Nature Made Him. And
Thank you.
you're welcome. The other one is A Separate Creation by Chandler Burr. And if you haven't read that one too, that one talks, there's an awful lot of stuff in there about the thing that, about gender identity and sexual orientation as far as being passed genetically. And that's why we're talking about this, what was it, XQ29 gene or something that is passed down matrilineally to men, and they have found a genetic marker for that as far as being gay. There was another interesting piece in that about prenatal hormones for whenever it was, what were they giving, testosterone to, it's been 10 years since I read this book. They were giving testosterone to pregnant women, I think to control some kind of, I don't know, morning sickness or something. Well, when they did, like 9 out of 10 of these girls who were born under this turned out to be gay. And so that was amazing, you know, the effects of hormonal, the hormones in the womb prenatally. I mean, this isn't like I have any issues with being gay. It's just interesting how that, and they're readable books. They're not terrible. I mean, if you like romances, they're going to be awful, but
No, not romantic.
but those were two, I think, of the most eye-popping books that I've read as far as GLBT.
Thank you. You've enlightened me.
Yeah, I recommend them.
Okay. Is there anything at all that we've missed that you'd like to talk about to this interview?
Well,
anything you had thought of maybe earlier that you'd like to talk about? Or?
Well, if I can be permitted to get on my soapbox a little bit.
Absolutely.
Okay. When Mom and I lived here in Harrisburg, we moved at 210 Harris Street, which is near 2nd and, between 2nd and Green, and it's right at Penn and Harris Streets. We came in, we lucked into this apartment. Mom was a nurse, and she got a job at Harrisburg Hospital. We actually escaped from our hometown of New Kensington. Things weren't real good there. Her family was giving her a hard time, so we came here to live. And so this was 1970, right after the riots. There was a lot of white flight going on, if you will. And we were a block from where some of the riots were here in Uptown. The Rialto Theater was devastated, and a lot of burnout buildings along 6th Street. And when we would mention that we lived in the city, people would just curl our lip like, why would you want to live there? And only low life live in the city. And so we were very happy there. Well, it turns out that the city was so looked down upon that the only people who really wanted to live there were gay people. And this became the gayborhood, and we ended up in the gay ghetto grew up around us, and thanks to two men who had been former lovers, Ron Yingling and Ed Meals.
Yes, know them both.
Know them both, marvelous gentlemen, and they pretty much did their homestead right there at Penn and Boyd Street, and it just spread. All their friends moved in, and at that point, I think, Harrisburg could have looked an awful lot like Detroit if it hadn't been for the gayborhood. The gay guys, nobody wanted us in their neighborhoods, so we, made our own. And I think the city owes a debt of gratitude to especially the gay men. I won't take any credit for it. The gay men who stuck out and did their homesteads right there along Penn Street, Hamilton Street, Harris Street, Green Street, all up and down Green Street. And you know, had it not been for that, you know, we probably wouldn't have this lovely place here now. I don't know.
The center.
Yeah,
You're
the
right.
center.
You are so right. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
No, that's about it.
That's about it? Okay. Well, we really appreciate this. This
Wow.
has been wonderful.
Oh,
And we
thank you.
thank you for being a part of this project.
Well, I thank you, Bob, and Nancy for taking your valuable time to do this.
We're happy to do it. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.